Happy New Year. It's great to see you here. If you're here in person, welcome. So happy that you're here. And if you're watching online, so glad that you're watching online as well. And hey, if you're quarantined or because you or someone you are with are sick, hoping and praying for your health. By the way, if you know someone else who's stuck at home, quarantining, you're watching online, why don't you take a second and share this with them so they can watch it with you? That would be a thought. But whether you're watching at home or here in the room live in person, I would love to give you an opportunity just to interact with us for a second. When you came in physically into the room, you were probably handing one of these. We call it the weekend program. When you open it up, you'll see there's life groups coming up. There's some things we've got going on that I think are really fun coming up real soon. But towards the back of this, you'll see this thing we call the Connect card. And if you would just do me a solid, as they used to say, probably do not say anymore, a favor and tear that off with me and take a moment, grab that pin that was with it and fill that out. Let us know what's going on in your life. How will you be praying for you? Maybe what you're looking forward to in this new year. And of course, if you're watching online, you can fill that out on the website. If you're watching on our website, or you can fill it out on our app. If you don't have the app, this would be a great time to download it and fill out the Connect card there as well. Just let us know how you're doing. But hey, I got a question for you. Do you remember the first time you ever jumped into the deep end? You have any memories surrounding that? I grew up in Chicago, like on the main streets of the inner city. There was not a swimming pool within 15 square blocks of the house, the apartments I grew up in. I didn't even know anybody who had a kiddie pool, seriously. But my grandparents lived in Florida. And every few years or so, we would go visit their home for a couple of weeks or so on summer vacation. And they belonged to a club that had a pool. And it was the biggest, nicest pool I had ever seen. And it had a diving board, like a high diving board, like one of these deals right there. And it was amazing. And I would splash around, a little guy, I would splash around in the shallow end, watching all the big kids, watching my older siblings jump off the diving board. And I swear it looked like the most fun a person could have in life, shy of like skydiving or something like that. It was incredible. And finally, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I had to get out of the shallows. I had to get off the sidelines, watching life pass me by. I needed to seize it by the tail. I was going to go jump off of that high dive if it killed me, and I was half certain it would. And so I did it. I climbed out of the shallow end. I took that long walk down to the side of the pool to the deep end, and I took my place in the high dive line behind kids who were easily 3, 4, 10 times my size. I kid you not. Waiting, inching forward, line piling up behind me, pressing against me. And finally, my hands grabbed the cold, wet steel of the ladder. And I began to inch my way up the ladder as one by one the lemmings hurled themselves off the precipice as if the threat of death meant nothing to them. And finally, I was there. At the top of the high dive, the last kid in front of me jumps off into nowhere, screaming as he goes. And it's my turn. And I inch my way up to the edge of this high dive, this diving board, and I look at how did it get this high? It's like 30, 40, 50 feet in the air. It does not look that high from the ground, but I swear to you, and as the blood returned to my face, I could hear the screams of pretty much every man, woman, and child in the pool saying, "Hey kid, jump, come on, jump in the water, come on." And I wanted to jump. And my brain was telling me to jump, but my feet would not jump. And I knew what I had to do. So I turned around and I began to inch my way back to the ladder. And that's when I realized I had an even bigger problem, because the ladder was crowded with now very annoyed, impatient, really big kids. And the next kid in line at the top of the stairs was my older brother. And he looked at me with a sneer and said, "You're not coming back this way." And I knew there was only one way out of this. There was only one way off that diving board. So I inched my way back to the edge. I swallowed my stomach. I took a deep breath and I plunged to my death. And the most surprising thing happened. I survived. But more than that, I enjoyed it. It was a rush, and for the rest of that summer vacation, man, I lived in the deep end where the big kids were, because the deep end, that's where all the action was, that's where the fun was, that's where the excitement was, and that's where I was. So today we're starting this new series called Out of the Shallows. Now, to be honest, most of the series that we try to do around here intentionally are for anyone and everyone. I mean, that's really how we kind of face it. Like, no matter who you are, where you're at on the spiritual spectrum, whatever you believe, we want to create an environment where you can get something out of it. But this is not one of those kinds of series. This series is actually not for everyone. It's for a certain kind of person. It's for the kind of person who wants that, who wants out of the shallows, who wants more, who wants deeper. Let me tell you who this series is for. First of all, this series is for the curious skeptic. Maybe you're not sure you would call yourself a Christian. Maybe you thought like what you used to believe and you're not really sure what you believe anymore. Maybe you're wondering about God or if there's anything more to this. And you know, like, I am not a random bag of molecules. There's got to be something more to it. And yeah, you hear like there's so many different views about God, and you can't know everything. But then again, you know that you don't have to know everything to know something. Like, that can't be an excuse to not continue to take next steps, right? And so you're investigating for yourself what a relationship with God might actually be like if it's real. And this series, I just want you to know, this series is definitely for you. And this series is also for the hungry novice. Maybe you've recently started in the last year or two or restarted a relationship of following Jesus. And now it's like you want to grow. You want to build a solid foundation. You got questions. You got curiosity. You want to understand more. You're like, bring it. I want more. And if that's you, that's awesome, because this series is most definitely for you. And by the way, just a side note, we're starting a life group in a few weeks. As life groups kick off in February, we're starting a life group called Starting Point, which is all about like taking those next steps in your spiritual journey as a skeptic or a seeking person or someone returning to faith or starting off on that spiritual journey. Wherever you're at, this is a great small group for you. And it will meet on Sunday mornings during our 11 a.m. gathering, making it super convenient, like if you need childcare and things like that. And it's Life Group SP on Sunday mornings. You could join that group today. I would strongly encourage you to do that. But this series is definitely for you, a curious skeptic, a hungry novice. I'll tell you another person this is for, the restless veteran. And maybe that's you. Maybe you've been following Jesus for a while now. You've been following Jesus for some years. You've got some years behind you, and you're wondering, what's next? Like, is where I've gone about as far as a person can go? Or maybe you've been following a while and you have this sense that you've plateaued a little bit. And it's maybe like, I wonder if my best days or my closest days of faith are days that I remember. The days that are in the rear view mirror. And it's not like things are bad or terrible, but you don't feel like you're still growing. You don't feel like you're still being stretched, like you're getting closer, and you're not okay with that, and you want more. And if that's you, this series is most definitely for you. But let me tell you somebody that this series really is not for. It's for someone I would call a comfortable coaster. Just a comfy coaster. You're on cruise control, you've taken your foot off the gas, and you are fine with that. You are comfortable just kind of coasting along in life, and particularly spiritually. And this, I just got to say, this season we're going through, this last couple of years has made it very easy, if not totally excusable, to be in that category right there. Am I right? Because you guys remember, like when COVID first hit 2 years ago, we all got a free pass to drop all of our good habits, right? You put on the sweatpants, started eating junk food, binge watching Tiger King. What was that about? Stopped exercising, disconnected from community, stopped seeing people face to face. And for many of us, if not most of us, if maybe not to some extent, all of us, like all of those habits, because our lives really are governed by our habits. All of those habits that we had put into place that kind of kept us in a good place mentally and emotionally and physically and spiritually, they were all just like out the window, right? And the effects were very quickly felt. Within a couple of weeks, there were people joking about the COVID-15, right? That then became the COVID-20, okay? And then we're just rounding down after that. But less funny, less of a joking matter, was a lot of the other things that we experienced. Rises in addictions, in alcoholism, marital conflict, family conflict, anxiety, depression, loneliness, and maybe you caught yourself kind of quickly and started putting back into place some of those habits. But when it came perhaps to your spiritual life, maybe you're watching or maybe you're here in person and this might describe a little bit of you. When it came to your spiritual life, like community and connection with God and with the Jesus movement, being part of something bigger than yourself and fully engaged, maybe for you, it's been easier than ever to just put that on hold, to just put that on pause, to just kind of cruise. And I've talked to people over the last few months that are saying, I'm just kind of waiting for this to all be over. Waiting for this to all be over. 2 years into this, I'm not even sure what that means anymore, but you're coasting. You're coasting, and worse, you've grown comfortable doing it. It's become easy and comfortable to do so. And if that's you, and if you're fine with that, this series, you may not enjoy it very much. You may not get very much out of it. It may not really speak to you, but my hope is that if you'll give this a chance, that just maybe you'll find yourself getting nudged off the couch a little bit. And I hope that this series, if that's you, inspires you and whets your appetite for more, for growth, for challenge, and for depth. Because here's what I know about all of you. You've been to the pool, you've been to high school, you've watched Bachelorette, you know what shallow is. You know what shallow is, right? And you don't really want that, do you? And yeah, shallow is easy and it's comfortable at times. It is easy to coast. It's easy to drift along with the current. Plenty of people do, but come on. Shallow people, shallow relationships, shallow minds, shallow thinking, shallow faith. Nobody strives for that. Nobody wants that. Nobody strives to be shallow. Nobody strives to be shallow. My ambition, my great ambition, you know what I want? I just want to be like this shallow facade of a human. No depth, no challenge, no growth, no authenticity, no real community, no contribution. I just want to stay in the shallows and chillax. I want to keep it shallow, pick my feet up and float along. Nobody strives for that. In fact, this might describe some of you, whether you're watching or in the room, it might describe some of you that shallow people and shallow minds and shallow faith might be why you don't want to be a Christian, or why you maybe took some steps away from being a Christian, because you saw that and you thought, if that's what it means to be Christian, like shallow thinkers who live inauthentic lives, who are afraid of questions, afraid of wrestling with the real gutsy kind of stuff of life, spouting quick, easy answers that they don't even know the meaning to when you press them to the next level. You're like, no thanks. If that's what that is, I don't want that. That's not real. See, none of us do. We want to be deep people. We want to be deep people. We want the deep end. That's where all of the good stuff of life really is. The good conversations, the good connection, the good relationships, the good growth, the meaning, the contribution, the significance. And we're wired for it. Our brains love it. Our brains thrive on something that's real and authentic and deep. It's why it feels so good. In fact, I guarantee you, in any area of your life where you've gotten out of the shallows, I bet you felt grateful, and I bet you felt happier, and you didn't want to go back. And that's true in all areas of our lives, and it's true of faith. Now, here's something I find really interesting. There are only 2 times in all of the stories of Jesus, the Jesus story, if you will, where Jesus is described as being amazed. That word amazed, or just marveled at something. 2 times when Jesus was like, whoa, did you just see that? Did you just see what I saw? Which raises a question. What do you think makes Jesus go, whoa? What makes Jesus go, whoa, right? I mean, Jesus was amazing. People were often amazed by him. They watched things that Jesus did and said, whoa, about him. But on 2 occasions, and only 2 occasions, Jesus himself is described as being amazed, of going, whoa. And the first time is a really powerful story. It's found in Matthew's biography of Jesus' life, Matthew chapter 8. And as the story goes, a Roman centurion who is, think about this, an officer in the army that was occupying their nation. Chew on that for a second. There's an army occupying our nation, and this man is an officer in that army, and he comes to Jesus. Most likely he's flanked with a handful of his guys. This guy would not travel alone ever, probably. He's got a few of his men with him, and they are always guaranteed dressed for battle everywhere they go. And they stop Jesus in the streets of Capernaum, and he asks Jesus, Lord, which is in this context just a statement of respect and frankly a statement of deference. Lord, he said, my servant lies at home paralyzed, suffering terribly. To which his disciples, Jesus' disciples, probably thought, good. I hope he does suffer. And I hope you catch whatever he's got and give it to all your Roman friends and take it back to Rome with you. I hope you all get sick and suffer terribly. The prejudice between the cultural prejudice and the ethnic prejudice ran very, very strong. Both ways, by the way, but Jesus does not share their prejudice. Jesus didn't just teach about loving your enemies. He actually did it. And so Jesus replies in a very surprising way. He offers to follow the centurion home. Shall I come with you? Do you want me to come with you and heal him? Now, you got to know at this point in the story, devout Jewish people avoided at all costs going into the homes of non-Jewish people because of what would be in those homes. Those homes would be decked out with shrines and idols and gods and incense and, probably pork and unkosher things. And you would get cooties just walking in there. You'd have to shower for a week just to get the disgust off of you. They would not go into the home of a non-Jewish person. And so Jesus says, hey, you want me to come with you? Disciples have to look at each other like that doesn't mean we have to go too, right? Because Jesus, my parents live in this town. They're going to find out. I can't go to this house. The centurion stops Jesus and says, no. You don't need to do that. I do not deserve. Again, very humble thing for a centurion to say. I do not deserve to have you come under my roof. He's been in this region long enough to know how this goes, to know how their religion and their rules work. I don't deserve to, I'm not asking you to do something like that. And then comes the amazing, amazing statement. He says, but just say the word. Standing right here, you just say the word and my servant will be healed. Now, you got to know, there was no idea in the ancient world of long distance healing. That was not a thing. So he's not tapping into something that's every day. It was not a thing. All cultures, including Roman culture, had their ideas of healing and of magic. There were temples you would go to and priests who would perform certain rites, and there were magicians who had incantations, but it was always, always, always in person with the people in the room together, usually touching each other. And this guy has heard stories about Jesus, stories about what Jesus does, what Jesus can do, but more than that, he's reasoned this whole thing through. And here's what he says. Here's how he's thought it through. For I myself am a man under authority, under power, with soldiers then under me. And I tell one to go and he goes. I tell another come and he comes. I say to my servant, do this, and he does it. In other words, he's saying, I get how authority works. I get how power works because I'm under authority and I represent an authority much, much, much greater than me. The Roman Empire, and people jump when I say jump because of the incredible power that I stand for, that I represent. And Jesus, I recognize that you stand for, you represent a power much greater than the power that I stand for. The God whom you represent, you can just say come or go, and powers far beyond me, including sickness, will do what you say. Whoa. And Jesus says when Jesus heard this, he was amazed. He was amazed. Wow. Wow, he says, whoa, amazed. But amazed by what? Certainly not amazed by the request. People made requests of Jesus every single day. Not even amazed by the humility, though it might have been a bit amazing. People humbled themselves when they were asking Jesus for favors all the time. He was amazed by, in fact, he says what he was amazed by. He looks around, and trust me, this is a bit of a dig. Truly, I tell you, I have not found anyone in Israel where I would be expected to find this kind of faith. I have not found anyone in Israel with such great, what's the word? Say it out loud. Faith. Such great faith. You know what blew Jesus' mind? Great faith. Here's a guy, think about this. Here's a guy who worships Zeus. He worships Jupiter. He worships Apollo and Fortuna and Asclepius and Mithra. He doesn't know any of the 10 Commandments. He's never offered any sacrifice at the temple. He's never read the Torah. He doesn't have all the right content, but he has great confidence. He's got incredible confidence in who Jesus is. And he says, listen, Jesus, I understand something about who you are, about what you represent, and you don't have to come to my house. I don't even deserve to have you come to my house, but you just say the word, and I'll go back home knowing that what you said was done back there because I trust you. Fun fact, maybe in contrast to your experience of religion or religious people or how you grew up, here's a fun fact for you. Jesus never marveled at anyone's knowledge or obedience. Never. Never once did Jesus marvel at someone's knowledge like, wow, you are so smart. You know so many Bible verses. That's incredible. That was such a clever insight. Hold on. Let me write that one down. That was amazing. He never marveled at anyone's knowledge or at their obedience, like, you are so good at obeying the rules. My goodness, you are an amazing rule follower. Like, such willpower. How do you even do that? Jesus never marveled at anyone's knowledge or obedience, but what he was genuinely amazed by in this moment was faith. Authentic, gutsy, I'm talking real life, the stuff of life on the line. Absolute, and in this context, really kind of extreme when you think about it, confidence in God and in him. Well, the second time Jesus was amazed is not really a very nice story. It's actually kind of a sad story. It's found in Mark's biography of Jesus' life. There are 4 biographies of Jesus' life found in what we call the New Testament: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Matthew was the story we just looked at. In Mark's biography of Jesus' life, he tells another story, and it goes like this. Jesus left there. He was right prior to this on the other side of the Lake of Galilee, and he's just crossed that lake, and he goes to his hometown, which is the town of Nazareth, which is on the southwest of the lake, not on the lake though, it's off into the countryside. Back to the town where he grew up, back to the town where probably much of his family still lives, if not all of them. He goes back to his town, followed by his disciples, because, by the way, that's what disciples do. They follow. And when Sabbath came, Saturday, the day of rest, the community gathers together in the synagogue, gathers in person, gathers together because that's what God followers have done for millennia. And Jesus, as this traveling rabbi, is asked to teach. And so he steps up and he begins to teach them in their synagogue. And many who heard them were astonished. They're initially like, wow, this guy is really good. He's really got some stuff here. And then they start to go, hey, wait a minute here. This is little Jesus. We remember little Jesus. Hey, Frank, isn't Jesus and his little brother James, didn't they throw a ball through your front window that one time? This is little Jesus who grew up around here. He's nothing special. And they begin to say to each other, hey, where did he get these things? What's this wisdom that's been given to him? What are these remarkable miracles that he's performing? And notice that they don't deny for a second that he's got incredible wisdom and that he does amazing things. But they begin to say, isn't this the carpenter? Hey, Joe, didn't Jesus build that table that's in your front room? Yeah, it's a pretty good table, still got it. Isn't this the guy who builds stuff? And here's a slur. Isn't this Mary's son? Insinuating the questionable lineage and heritage of Jesus and his parentage and such. Isn't this Mary's son and his brothers, James, Joseph, Judas, Simon? Aren't his sisters right here with us? And they took offense at him. They took offense at him that someone of such common origins and maybe such questionable origins should be trying to maybe be something they're not, like he's exceeding his station, that kind of feeling, like who does he think he is? And Jesus said to them, a prophet is not without honor except in his own hometown. There's an irony to this statement because in your own hometown and with the people who know you best, that is where your greatest honor should be. But alas, familiarity often breeds contempt. And he says a prophet is not without honor except in his own hometown, among his own relatives, in his own house. And then Mark says he could not do any miracles there. What? He could not do any miracles there except to lay his hands on a few sick people and heal them, to which I'm like, that's still pretty great. That doesn't happen every day, does it? He could not do any miracles. Why? Well, it's not because of anything that had to do with Jesus, like his power or his ability, but it was because they were not willing to come to him. With that humble confidence and trust that a Roman centurion had, they were not willing to come to him, believing that he actually had the power to do what they could not do. And so he wasn't able to do anything for them. And then the story says, and he was amazed. But this time, at their lack of faith. What makes Jesus go, whoa? Apparently, is faith. Faith, either having great, unexpected, uncharacteristic, gutsy, right here in the real world faith, or lacking it when really it actually should be there. And maybe at this point, we should define what we're actually even talking about. When I use this word faith, what we're talking about particularly in this series, because that word means a lot of different things, a lot of different contexts. Often the word faith might just as easily be replaced by the word beliefs, right? Just my beliefs. This is my faith. This is what I believe. Or sometimes the word is somewhat synonymous with maybe the word religion, like what is your faith? There are people of different faiths. We are not talking about beliefs, and we are definitely not talking about deeper religion. But what we're talking about is something very active. It is the gritty, gutsy, grounded in real life confidence in God. Faith, what we're talking about is gritty, gutsy, real life confidence in God. This reliance, this trust, this deference to the vastly superior power and wisdom of the Creator God. Let those two words sink in for a second. The Creator God, confidence that very same God is with us and for us, with you and for you, and you trust that. You trust that and you lean into that and you live into that when things are going really badly. You're like, God, I am trusting you about this. That the story's not over, that you are with me and for me, and you have my best in mind. I trust you. When you're facing temptation and you're at crossroads, tempted to take matters into your own hands, you're like, God, I have absolute trust that you are bigger than me. You are so much smarter than me. You know and understand the landscape, the outcomes of these decisions so much better than me. And I believe and trust that your path for my life is always, hands down, the best possible path for my life. And I trust you. I trust you. I trust you when things around me seem really scary. I'm like, God, I'm not going to be afraid. I'm going to be wise, but I am not going to be afraid because I trust you. I trust that nothing is ever truly out of your grasp. that you were always up to something and you were always up to something good. And so I rely on you and I'm going to walk with you and follow you into this unknown because I trust you. And then when things are going really well, it's this confidence in God that I'm never blown off course. I'm never like wigged out by success, but instead I'm like, God, I thank you for this. I thank you for this. I'm trusting that you will lead me with this abundance, that you will lead me with this success. I am not going to get full of myself. I'm not going to get independent from you because you are the one I rely on and you are with me and you are for me. It's this gritty, gutsy, grounded, real life confidence in God that he is with me and for me. And I can trust him. So here's a question for you. What if you had that? What if you had that? Like seriously, that fearless, unshakable, death-defying confidence that the Creator God is with you and for you. Not denial, by the way. I am not talking about denial. Hey, everything's good. It's all good. This isn't an absence of reality. In fact, it's more rooted in reality. It's more reality. It's bigger reality. It's tenacious, not denial, not magic. This is not magic. Well, if we just believe enough, good things will happen. That's magical thinking. That's not real. Not blind faith. Don't confuse me with the facts. Don't give me more information. Not resignation. And often faith sounds a lot like just resignation. Well, I can't control it, so whatever will be an abdication of our responsibility to take action and choose wisely. I am not talking about any of that, but you have this deepening faith that God is with you and he is for you and he is always up to something and he is always up to something good. The story is not over yet. He's inviting you into the next chapter and people walk up to you. I mean, you display this and they walk up to you and they're like, are you paying attention right now? Like, how are you smiling? How are you so courageous? Are you in denial? Don't you see what's going on in the world when you look around and you're like, oh yeah. Oh, I'm paying very close attention to what's going on around me because I believe that God is up to something. And I don't want to miss it. When it starts to unfold, I'm paying attention. Confidence in God. Confidence in God that, first of all, overcomes all fear. The kind of confidence in God that, imagine you fearless. No fear. No fear. No anxiety, no paralyzing confusion. Like, why should I be nervous? Why should I be afraid? Why should this paralyze me? God knew about this before I did. God knew about all of this, by the way, before it ever happened. He has a path through this. I'm just going to stay connected to him moment by moment. No fear about your kids. No fear about your marriage. About relationships. No fear about other people and what other people are doing. No fear about our country. No fear about the climate. No fear about the world, no fear about your finances, no fear about the job. Wisdom, but no fear. No fear. A confidence that overcomes all fear, a confidence that fuels great love. That fuels great love. Because here's what you may already know. Fear and love are actually incompatible. Fear and love are incompatible. In fact, it is often fear. The inability to trust that actually keeps us from loving really well. Isn't that really true? It's often fear and our desire to defend ourselves or protect ourselves that actually keeps us in any given moment from really loving greatly. I love this line that John once said. John was one of the 12 followers of Jesus who eventually would write a story of Jesus' life, but he also wrote a couple of letters. And in one of his letters, he writes this. He says, there is no room in love for fear. There is no room in love for fear. I love this line, well-formed love banishes fear. I'd love us to say that line out loud together. Just this one right here. Will you say it with me? 1, 2, 3. Well-formed love banishes fear. One more time. Well-formed love banishes fear. Isn't that amazing? Since fear is crippling, a fearful life. Fear of death, fear of judgment is one not yet fully formed in love. So because I trust God, I have no fear. And because I have no fear, I am able to love really well, to have great love. This confidence in God actually frees me and fuels me to love really well, even in really difficult situations. And some of you are in very difficult situations to love well right now. And it's that trust in God's presence that he is with you and for you that has the potential to free you to great love. And thirdly, it is a confidence that inspires gutsy obedience. I mean, gutsy obedience. The kind of confidence and trust in God that again says, God, you are so much smarter than me. You are so much bigger than me. You see the landscape so much better than me. There's an old saying that goes like this: if we could see what God sees, we would do what God says. If we could see what God sees, we would do what God says every single time. As crazy as it sounds, as restrictive as it sounds, if I could see exactly how God sees, I'd be like, that is the biggest no-brainer. In the history of no-brainers, of course I'm going to do that. That is so wise, that is so brilliant. If we could see as God sees, we would do what God says every single time. And this is the kind of deepening faith that says, I don't need to see what you see to trust that you are way smarter than me. You are way better than me. You know the landscape better than me, and I am going to trust you. I'm just going to do the next right thing. Well, where's that going to lead you? I have no idea, but I trust God. I'm just going to do the next right thing. How can you give that? How can you be that generous with what you have? How can you turn that opportunity down? Really, how can you stick it out in that difficult situation? Answer, trust God. I trust God. He's bigger than me. He's smarter than me. I'm going to let him write my story. I'm going to do what he says. Confidence that overcomes all fear, that fuels great love, that inspires gutsy confidence. And imagine that's you. Imagine you becoming that kind of person. Imagine by this time next year, January 2023, you're not just a year older chronologically, you're a year deeper. You are becoming that kind of person, unshakable, joyful, confident, courageous, fearless, deeper. Imagine if that's you, imagine just really quickly how that might influence, say, your relationships. If that's becoming more and more who you are, how that might actually influence how you relate to people who are important, how that might influence your emotional and mental well-being, how that might influence your sense of calling and contribution in this world. Imagine that right there is who you are becoming. And here's the reason why we're starting off this new year talking about this, because I believe that that's where God wants to take every single one of us, that's God's goal for your year as you're planning and kind of thinking through your year and making plans. This is God's goal for where he wants to take you. God's goal for your life in 2022 is that you would become a person of deep, amazing faith. That you would become a person of deep, amazing faith, a person with this is like over the top, never say die, I'm all in, are you kidding me kind of confidence in God. And you would be the kind of person, and I would become the kind of person who wakes up every single morning and says, what would a person like me do if they actually believed that the creator of the universe was right now, today, with them and for them all day long? What would I do? How would I behave? What would I choose? Now, here's what's interesting to me. As you read the stories of Jesus' life, and by the way, we're going to pick this up right here next week. As you read the stories of Jesus' life, one of the things that you discover is that the thing that Jesus really wanted and actually expected to see in people was this kind of faith. Actually growing and growing deeper, fearless, unshakable, unflinching, just bet the farm kind of faith. And there is a story that always disturbs me. Again, it's found in Mark's biography of Jesus' life, Mark chapter 4. It's a famous story. Jesus and his followers, his disciples, are out on a boat. They're crossing this lake of Galilee. It happens right before the scene where he comes back to his hometown. There's a storm that sweeps down over the lake. It's threatening to swamp the boat. These guys who have been raised on this lake, a number of them are actually fishermen, are freaking out. Jesus is stone cold sleeping in the back of the boat, and they wake him up screaming, we're gonna die, we're gonna die, we're gonna die. And the story says he got up, he rebuked the wind, and he said to the waves, quiet, be still, trying to sleep here. Then the wind died down, and it was completely calm, and he looks at his disciples and says, why are you so afraid? Why are you so afraid? Like, hold on, is this a rhetorical question? Because I think the answer is obvious. Are you kidding me? There was a storm. Okay, it's really calm now, but a second ago, we were gonna die. Do you still have no faith? Do you still, now get this, by this time in the story, they've been following him for, I don't know, maybe a year, maybe a little less. How long have you been following? Do you still have no faith? In other words, he wanted them to live their lives, every moment of their lives, including this moment of their lives, as if God, the creator, God truly was their heavenly Father, the creator of the winds and the waves, was actually with them and for them right then and right there. And he not only wanted it, apparently he expected it. He expected that by this time in their spiritual journey, they would have been growing this kind of deep faith that would actually change the way they react viscerally in a situation like this. And their fear levels are a clear indication to Jesus that they were not where they should be by now in terms of their faith. Wow, which makes me wonder. I don't know what you think when you read stories like this, but I always find myself putting myself in the middle of the story like, I don't think I would have fared much better. Might have fared a little worse. But then I also think, does Jesus think that way of me on many days? Does he respond? Might that be his response to me on many days? Could it be that Jesus actually expects me? More growth, more depth, more confidence, more absolute trust in him than I often portray or experience. Does he expect that of my growth as well? See, here's the thing. Spiritual growth is really all about deepening faith. Spiritual maturity is all about faith maturity. Growing a great relationship with God is all about deep, audacious, death-defying trust in God. The kind of trust and confidence that overcomes all my fears, that fuels and frees me to great love, that enables gutsy obedience, that just goes all in with God. I don't know how this is going to turn out, but I just want you to know, God, before you even tell me what you want me to do, my answer is yes. Your kingdom come, your will be done. You call me out on the waters, I am walking there with you. And that really is God's goal for your life in 2022. Amazing faith. And that's why we're starting this year off this way. Because by this time next year, you will be 1 year older chronologically. As difficult as that is to swallow. But the question is, will you be 1 more year mature? Will you be 1 year more deeper? Will you be 1 year more healthier? Will your faith be 1 year stronger, more grounded, both in its content and its confidence? Will you not just be 1 year older chronologically, but 1 year better by the end of this year? Which, of course, raises one more question. And it is maybe the most important question to ask at this point. Well, how do we get that? If I want to be deeper, like nobody strives to be shallow, but how do we grow deeper like that? And you may already know the answer to the question. That is what we're going to be talking about over the next 3 weeks. Do not miss the next 3 weeks of this series. Let me close this in prayer. Heavenly Father, I want to thank you. I mean, it's really unfathomable that the creator of the universe, the one who said, let there be light, the inventor of galaxies and gravity, is with us and actually for us. That is, in many ways, unbelievable. And at the same time, it's maybe the greatest oversight in the history of all oversights for those of us who say we believe that, to not wake up every day filled with an incredible confidence that if you're with us and for us and we're walking with you, that you're going to be doing things in us and around us, and we want to be a part of that. We want to get out of the shallows because the good stuff is happening in the deep end. So I just pray for all of us, wherever we're at on that spiritual spectrum. Heavenly Father, I pray that you would remind us even in this moment of who you are and that you are with us and for us. And then I pray as we go into this week that you would just keep us mindful and aware as we wake up every morning, we might ask ourselves, well, what would someone do if they believed this would be true? And that we would start stepping into that this week, trusting you. And I pray that in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, John. I think that all of us really desire what it is that you were talking about today, and thinking a lot about what it would look like, for us to have this type of faith and this type of love and this type of obedience. And I think that we were all kind of come to terms that if we were to be those kinds of people, it means that we'd really be swimming against the current. Because we're living in this world where we get these messages, don't we, that says there's just a lot to fear. And so you better play it safe, and you better take care of your thing, and you better just settle, for comfort, because the idea of living a life of wild faith, that's going to get you into trouble. And so I know that in the seasons of my life where I've really felt like that I'm walking with God in a radical way, in a really faithful way, it's really been assisted by being in the company of people that were doing it as well. So it wasn't me just doing it all alone, just kind of trying to figure out how to do my relationship with God all by myself, but it was with some people that were in my life that we could look each other in the eye and say, hey man, we're going to do this together. And that we're going to cheer each other on, we're going to help each other, we're going to hold each other accountable. And so as we've begun this new year with this new series, is that it's not an accident that we're also beginning this new year with a whole new round of life group signups. January is life group sign-up month, and these life groups, I believe, are going to be the places where we're going to be able to develop some relationships and connection with people to be able to cheer each other on to actually do this and to actually be in this place where we are really taking some really big steps forward in placing confidence and trust in God. And so if you're here with us in person, I'd like to invite you just to pull out this life group brochure that we have. This is probably your first time to take a look at this. This weekend is our first weekend to have life group signups, and we just want to encourage everybody to sign up for a group because we need to have those kinds of relationships, I believe, if we're going to experience this life of deep faith that God has and wants for us. And so I really believe that God has placed this as a tool for us to see that come to pass. And so I want to encourage everybody who calls Turno home to be a part of a group coming up this next session. You can go through the brochure, find out the group that you want to be involved with. You can fill out the life group form and hand it in. You can do that tonight. If you are on the app, you'll find that life group signups are on the app. They're also online. If you're watching at home, you can go ahead and use those ways of signing up for a group. And you see how it all is going to, I think, play out for us. It's going to play out for us to be able to be encouraged, to have more courage, to really trust in the unseen work of God in our lives, because that's kind of what faith, much of what faith is all about, is really trusting just the unseen ways that God is going to work, and believing that God is going to then use our faith not only to enrich our lives, but to really bless the lives of people that are around us. And don't we want to be those kinds of people, those people where blessing just flows through our lives in the coming year? And so I want to really encourage you to sign up for a life group, and please do take the time that you need to take in order to figure out which group you want to be in, but don't take too much time, okay? Because I think the more time is the more that we put it off and go, oh, it'll be a hassle and it's just not going to work. And what if I don't like people that are there? It's like, come on. You know where that's coming from. And that's that isn't the direction that God would want you to have. Is that take a step of faith. Maybe this will be the first time for you to be in a group. It's like, I don't know about this group thing, but I am going to try. And I'm just trusting that God is going to work that all out with all of us. So it should be great. Hey, listen, as we cool things down, I just wanted to let you know that a part of our practice together as we gather is to worship God through the means of our giving, through the offering. And there are some simple ways in which we can do that, either by using the envelope. If you're here in person, you can use that. You can also give online, or you can give using the Terra Nova app and, talking about, beginning to really work out some faith muscles. So for many of us, giving is one of the ways in which that happens, where we place trust, trusting that the resources that God has given us actually don't belong to us, but we give them back to God, and then he does some things that are extraordinary with that together through at Terra Nova, while at the same time building us into people that actually are really generous deep in the core. And so anyway, that's a great way for you to participate here at Terra Nova. But whatever you do is that we would love to have you give us that Connect card, get us that Connect card. And so if you're here in the room, you got the paper copy that you can use. If you're watching online, you can go ahead and use the online methods and the app. And we just love to hear from everybody. And so that would be great. And so take some time, get that ready to get it to us, and that'd be wonderful. And then we're looking forward to next week. Next week's going to be super strong for the guys. Got a men's breakfast that's happening. We're just giving you a heads up. We're probably going to meet outside in the parking lot. Make sure you bring a jacket. And then next weekend, part 2 of Out of the Shallows. It's going to be great. We look forward to seeing you all there. God bless you guys. Have a great week.